Hi, this is Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextrous Gunfighter to give you my 3 reasons that the paddle magazine release is better than the button magazine release. Now for me it started with the, I got the Ruger American Compact 9, which had full Ambi controls, which is what I was looking for. Turned out the slide releases didn't work out, and it did have ambidextrous button magazine release. Well, I got rid of that, and I got the Walther PPQ M1 Classic, which has the paddle magazine release. That was my first time actually working with those, and I was very impressed with the perfect mirroring of course, the paddle magazine release, and on the Walther PPQ, the perfect mirroring of the slide releases. And comparing the Walther PPQ to the HK VP9, it also has a paddle magazine release, but the slide releases weren't quite as perfectly mirrored as the Walther PPQ, so I chose the PPQ first. Later on, I did find a good buy on a HK VP9, so I bought one of these as well, and came to appreciate that the slide releases, once they started working good both sides, were as far as feel and shooting it, you couldn't really tell the difference between left and right. So even though they weren't perfectly mirrored, they were mirrored good enough. Now, since then, I've learned the three big reasons that I think the paddle magazine release is better than the button magazine release. Now, of course, for me initially, it was the ambidextrous thing, being the ambidextrous gunfighter. I was looking for pistols that were completely 100% ambidextrous, and both the PPQ and the VP9 with their paddle magazine releases had very nice ambidextrous magazine releases. Now, as far as button magazine releases, I did go with the get also a FNS 9C. It was another one of those bargains on sale, couldn't pass it up kind of buys, and it has very nice button magazine releases. Now, since then, I've kind of come to view the whole magazine release side of things as being not all that important. Reasons are, for starters, most people don't carry an extra magazine. So the fact that you can quickly change magazines left or right-handed is not that critically important. Most gunfights are over within 4 rounds, or most actually never involve any rounds the pistol ever being shot at all. So I've become less strident about the need for perfect Ambi magazine releases and slide releases and that stuff, but still I do prefer the paddle magazine release. So the first reason, of course, for the paddle magazine release is that it's full Ambi. Now, of course, this is an Ambi pistol. This has button magazine releases. I would think these would be better if they weren't opposable. I wish they were non-opposable button magazine releases. Because as they are right here, you push in on one side and they come out on the other side. Now, what I want is that you push on this side, or you could push both sides simultaneously. Which brings me to the next reason I like the paddle magazine release, is that by operating it within a pinch movement, that is gripping the pistol and pinching down at the front of the grip into the paddle magazine release, not only are you maintaining a firm grip during a magazine change, you can shake it out and you've got a nice firm grip on it as you're pinching those paddles. And so that's the second reason I like the paddle magazine release. Typically for most pistols, the button mags, you're kind of kicking it to the side a little bit, so your grip is altered, not quite as good to dump that magazine out. So when it comes, if you're shaking the mag out, it's not quite as firm a grip as if you're pinching it, which is why I would like the full Ambi button magazine release. If you're going to have a button magazine, if you're going to insist on button magazine release, then at least make the Ambi ones non-opposable, where I can squeeze both sides at the same time and drop that magazine, and thereby maintain a firmer grip on the pistol. Now this brings me to probably the #1 reason I like the paddle magazine release. And that is because it's far less likely to accidentally disengage the magazine. And with the paddles, when you put it in a holster, the paddles are protected by the holster, the trigger guard, and so it's not going to get bumped, not going to cause, actually with it in a holster, there's really no way to disengage that magazine. You have to get that holster free, and so you can work the paddles. Whereas a pistol like this, you can have the holster maybe covering the trigger guard, but you can still get these bumped and cause your magazine to end up being disengaged in your holster. Now of course the bad thing about that is, assume you have a round in the chamber. If you don't, it's even worse, but say you come to a situation where you come to draw your pistol and this been disengaged in there because you bumped against something, and so you draw your pistol and whoops, you've just your magazine has just hit the ground. Now that means you have at most one shot, assuming you're carrying with a round in the chamber, which you should be if you have a decent holster. But the bad thing is that not only do you have only one shot, but the bad guy, being probably ignorant of firearms, may have seen the magazine drop, and now he assumes that you're basically disarmed, so he's just going to bum rush you, and all you've got is one shot to deal with it. And then even if he does know that dropping the magazine out and that you might have a round in the chamber, he may think that it has a magazine disconnect in it, and therefore your pistol won't fire. So you're losing the deterrent effect of it if you pull your pistol out and embarrassingly your magazine just drops out. Now I've run into this a lot with the PF9 doing pocket carry. With this button here basically in my pocket, it's very easy for me to bump up against something or lay down on the ground, and now I've got basically a disengaged magazine. Now if you're a administrative or bureaucrat type that doesn't have to do anything physical or get out in the real world, get under cars, look underneath your vehicle, crawl around in the dirt, mud, or whatever, then maybe this would never happen to you. Although it does happen even if it's in my back pocket and I lean back in a recliner, it can often disengage there as well. My original issue with this problem was with the LCP, and here it is in a nice concealed carry leather pocket holster, and you can see there's the magazine release right there, and right here you can see actually where it kind of rubs up against this covering here. And the way this holster works is you reach your hand down in the pocket and kind of between this helps break up the outline so it doesn't print as bad. And anyway, quite often, again, so sitting on the grass, crawling underneath the car, whatever, there's a lot of ways it can still get bumped even inside here. Now a solution for this would be to cut out a relief hole there to help prevent this from happening. And but still, you often end up finding your pistol with the magazine disengaged. Now this is actually my wife's LCP, and she purse carries, and when I went to retrieve this pistol from her purse, guess what? I found it like that. So if she had needed it, reached into her little compartment in her purse to pull it out, she would have basically probably, as pulled out in panic, magazine would have dropped out. In my view, those who do carry a concealed weapon, it's more important that those first 4 shots, or at least the first whole magazine, is available to you. Because one, like I said, probably most people aren't carrying an extra magazine. And so those first 4 shots are the more critical ones, and it's very important that the pistol operate and you be able to have access to all the ammo in that magazine. And that means having that magazine not be on the ground, or it could even be disengaged and maybe get a shot off, and you basically got what you think is a malfunction. You have to go through the whole tap, rack, bang drill. Having the paddle magazine release to ensure that this first magazine is completely available to you is critical. Now, to be fair, the FNS9C with its recessed buttons, these buttons are not exactly the easiest to operate. I mean, if you're doing IPSEC or something, you know, competition 3-gun or whatever, where you're doing lots of magazine changes, it's not quite as easy to operate these buttons. They are a little bit recessed, but in my view, that is a feature, a benefit. If you're going to have the button magazine release, you want them recessed, because to me, it is more important that that first magazine of ammo is available to you in a self-defense situation than a speedy reload when that magazine runs dry, assuming you even have a second magazine to feed it. So it's more important that this not, during your carry, you don't want to find that this magazine is partially disengaged. So let's just to review the 3 reasons that the paddle magazine release is better than the button release. Number 1 is full Ambi. Number 2 is you maintain a firmer grip on the pistol when using the pinch operation of the paddle magazine release. And then, but the key one is number 3, is that your magazine is not accidentally disengaged during carry, and so that full magazine is available to you in a self-defense situation. Now, oftentimes the paddle magazine release is called the European magazine release, and that can be a little bit off-putting to Americans, but we've got to, in my opinion, like H&K has pandered to the American market by actually offering a button magazine version of the VP9, which to me is criminal. PPQ also offers their new M2. The PPQ M2 is a button magazine release as well, and I think that again is to the American market that just doesn't seem to be willing to really adopt you know, something that's better if it comes from Europe. Generally, I think American manufacturers should be producing better. You know, we should be the arsenal of democracy, and I think we're really failing in a lot of ways. I would like to see, you know, unfortunately, probably if an American manufacturer made a paddle magazine release, they'd probably only put the magazine paddle on the right or on the left-hand side of the pistol for right-handed shooters, and not even have it on the other side, which would then, you know, eliminate 2 of the advantages of the paddle magazine release. But at least, of course, it would be secure in your preventing the magazine from being accidentally disengaged. Now, as far as I know, the only American manufactured pistol with the paddle magazine release is the Kel-Tec P17, which is a 22 pistol. Now, hopefully, we'll see whether it's from Kel-Tec or someone else, we'll see a new 9mm pistol from some American manufacturer that will feature a paddle magazine release. And can we just please stop calling it the European paddle or European magazine release? That's at the minimum, call it paddle magazine release, or maybe come up with something better. But definitely we'll look forward to an American-made 9mm with the paddle magazine release. And I've seen this whole rush of these, you know, sub and micro 9s that are trying to differentiate themselves from one another. You know, the Hellcat with 11 rounds, the SIG 365 series with the you know 10 round capacity, and the Glock 43 and the Mossberg, you know, MC1 SC or the MC2C, and they're all just basically, you know, pretty much alike in so many ways, and it would be so easy for just at least one of those to, like, you know, differentiate themselves from the pack by using a paddle magazine release. and extolling its virtues. Its virtues being Ambi, pinch operation, and secure or prevent accidental disengagement of the magazine. This is Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextral Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.